Hello and welcome to the Shakedown. I am your host, Ryan Forbes, aka Rainforest, and I am here with David Brown.
Everybody, David Brown here.
And today we are talking about the prison phone system. We are talking about how it works, and how it works in general. And also, because basically, we'll start with why I wanted to talk about it in the first place. The reason I wanted to talk about this topic is so you go in, one of the rules when you they give you a handbook when you come into prison or even into jails. They'll give you a rule handbook. And one of the rules in there is basically you cannot make money in prison. If you make money, if you get caught basically making money, if you running a business outside of the prison, then you can basically get a case, or worse, I don't know if you can get free world charges and get additional time, but when it comes up for parole, they'll see that you've been running a business, and then you could lose your chance at parole. So
I think they call it running an outside enterprise or something, is in the handbook as far as the disciplinary code or something like that.
Right. So you have that. You can't be making money. So you get locked up, you can't be making money. And then also one of the first things they do after they give you the handbook, is they give you a job, and then they assign you a job. The job in Texas pays you nothing. In most other states, it either pays you nothing or it pays you maybe $1 to $2 an hour. Maybe. Yeah, that's good pay, good prison pay across the country. So it's well below minimum wage. It's not a living wage. So you're not making any money inside prison. Where Dave and I were at, you're not getting any money. So you have no money. You have no, and if you try and make some, you're going to get in trouble. So then you get to the phone. When you go to the phone, you have to pay to use the phone. And that was the thing that astounded me about when I was locked up, is that somehow all these people who were not making any money, didn't have any money at their disposal, were supposed to be paying for these phone calls that they were making every day. The way they did it was that people were sending in money to the prison so that people could make phone calls, but they had to pay to make the calls every day. And yet they're working for the prisons. They're doing all this stuff. Everyone's got some sort of job, even if you're in a wheelchair or handicapped or whatever, you're a medical squad. Sometimes you can get, in very extreme circumstances, you get medically unassigned. But most of the time, you're going to be on medical squad, which rarely does anything. You might pick up trash, once every 6 months. But you still get assigned a job when you get to a unit. That's one of the first things they do, a non-paying job. And you have to pay to use these phones, which a lot of people use every day. Some people to the point which they use all day long, preventing other people to use. So I was kind of astounded about that. And then I was also, the other part that was astounding is that the prison doesn't own these phones. And actually, an outside company owns pretty much all of the phones, not just in Texas, but in pretty much all of the prisons. That amazed me. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that, Dave?
So, it's funny, the very first time I ever went to jail, This is just county jail. It's not even prison. But I mean, back then they didn't have phones in prison. But they, you could use the phone, and you just made a collect call, and it was all handled through Southwestern Bell or whatever. Of course, this was way back in the glory days when there were no cell phones, for the most part. But back then it was, Southwestern Bell handled it all. The prisons, I guess, the jails contracted, out to, the phone companies put the phones in the jail, whatever. And there were no time limits. There were nothing like that. You could just get on the phone, make one collect call, and be on the phone all day long. And people would actually fight to use the phone because, you've got a pod or a jail cell with, like 40 people in there, and you've got two phones. So obviously people are going to want to use the phone. And in prison, it's like, it's there. What's always struck me is, oh yeah, you can have this phone, and you're going to, when you have to make the phone list, you have to have an approved call list of people that you can call. And then you have to go through Securus. There's no other way to do it. And they charge an arm and a leg. And it's just crazy because it's how in this country, it's really expensive to be poor. And it's like people just keep taking and taking from poor people. And it's like you got somebody in jail whose family probably can't really afford, to send them commissary money, let alone, pay for the phone. So they're, breaking their back so that these people can call. And Securus, they don't care. They just want to make the money.
Right.
I would love to see who's on the board of directors of Securus. I'm actually on their site on my phone. It's
yeah, I'm looking at their site as well, and I brought it up. It looks like 51 states, because they've including District of Columbia, and District of Columbia has a surprising number of facilities, 2, 4, 6, 8, though I think it looks like they're counting New York facilities too. But they're just
3,400 correctional facilities across the United States.
Yeah. So 3,400. So they're just in the United States, but there's at 3,400 correctional facilities, and Securus is basically, they handle pretty much all of the communications, aside from what JPay handles, but you're paying them. They'll usually work out deals with either the prisons or even the individual wardens about getting their phones set up in there, which in Texas, I don't think they even got phones until the early 2000s.
So in Texas too, from what I understand, and so I mean, I don't have the facts on this, but this is, from what I understand, is that Securus came in, they put the phone system in the Texas prisons. Then when the phone system first came in, calls were ridiculously expensive. And they were ridiculously expensive because Securus wanted their money back from putting the phone system into the Texas prisons. So they were taking a premium on top of the phone call. And they got sued, apparently. And before it went to the Supreme Court, Securus said, the heck with it, and they dropped it. And the phone, the calls and phone calls just, immediately, like one night they were, I don't know, $3 something a call, and then the next day they were like, $1.50.
It was 34, I think it was like 34 cents for out of state calls and 43 cents for in-states. It was something per minute for in-state call. Yeah. And then it went down to 11 cents per minute for calls. And it was an insane drop. Everyone was like, it was amazing, because I remember I'd have to constantly keep on putting $100, like have my people put $100 on my books to make phone calls to people. And because I'd be constantly running out. And so this is from the Texas Tribune. Texas prisoners have made and received more than 4.7 million telephone calls and sent and received 1.8 million emails. I don't even know how that has to be very recent.
Yeah, the tablets are new.
Yeah, well, but since So 1.8 million emails since 2009, when the state became the last in the nation to allow inmates phone and email access. The email access has to be at federal prisons.
Well, no, so apparently they have tablets in Texas prison now too. I mean, they were starting it on like some pilot units before we got out, but now apparently they're on quite a few of the units.
They are, but this story actually came out in 2011.
Okay. Oh yeah, that definitely has to be the federal prison because it's not Texas, so that's for sure.
Yeah. This story actually is funny. They're saying that the phone calls did not generate as much revenue as they had hoped for, even though it generated $6 million for the state. Though I'm willing to bet $6 million for the state, probably way more for Securus.
Yeah, I'm about to say if they made $6 million, I can only imagine what Securus made.
But yeah, and this also we also need to get into another thing that comes up a lot, and I see a lot on social networks, is about a lot of times people online, they talk about inmates with cell phones, and inmates, like some inmates live stream, some inmates record videos. How does that work? And how is that working? And Dave, I'll let you answer that question. How do inmates get cell phones, Dave?
Well, I mean, you take a prison guard who's getting a ridiculously low salary and put them in a place where people need things from the outside world and they're willing to pay for it. And bang, you've got a flip phone for $600 and a touchscreen phone for $1,000, and it comes with 1 month of service, and it's going to be Boost or, Cricket or whatever. And these guards just bring them in. I was on medium custody. You know how many phones were on medium custody? It was crazy. I mean, I even made some phone calls. So it was just insane. I was not about to take a picture in prison. I thought about it for a minute, but I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. But it was just crazy, the sheer amount of phones that are there. And, and it's just like anything else. They can hide them. And if you get caught with them, it's just a major case. People on medium custody, they don't really care about a major case because they're on medium custody. And for those of you that don't know, medium custody is, so if you get in trouble and you catch a major case in prison, they could put you on medium custody where you are in a cell for 20 hours a day. So you get, 2 hours of recreation in the morning, 2 hours of recreation in the evening, and then you just come out to shower and eat, and that is all. So, I mean, if you have nothing else to do, you're sitting in a cell, you might as well be on a phone.
Right. And we've known guys that sit in the cell and they'll get on their phones, they will smoke the entire time. The medium custody is where they love to flood the run or set fire things and throw them at the guards and throw them out the windows.
I never understood why people want to set things on fire. And you used to see this all the time on medium custody because you have, the cell blocks, you have the cells, and then you have, so it's tiered up. So there's 3 levels of cells. So you have this big, so if you're on the top floor, you drop something, it's dropping 3 flights down and hitting concrete. And these people would set fire to their clothing, their mattresses, whatever. And I'm just kind of thinking, you're in a concrete and steel building. Why are you setting things on fire? And it's, more or less, it was just a look at me kind of thing. But it's just, it always struck me as just odd how they'll do that. That and flooding the run. So you're going to clog your toilet and continue flushing your toilet until it overflows and then run water out of your cell. So your entire cell is covered with water. And so you can flood everything. It just doesn't make sense to me. Interestingly enough, Securus is owned by Beverly Hills-based private equity firm Platinum Equity.
Net
worth of Securus is, oh, wow. I'd say they were making considerably amount more money. The net worth of Securus is $1.5 billion.
Wow.
That is absolutely insane. In 2020, Securus revenues grew 10% to $69.5 million, from $69.5 million to $767.5 million. That was in 2020, their revenue. Their jumped. Wow. It's just we have to do a little bit more.
When did it jump?
So in 2020, it went there. It went from 69.5 to 767.
Yeah, during the pandemic. When everyone needed contact. Yeah, that was great. And also, one other big thing that happened in 2020 that might be a little side note is that I don't know if it was just in Texas, though I'm pretty sure this happened across the country. They pushed that legislation that eliminated a lot of physical mail. Put all those they put the restrictions on physical mail, so you couldn't get cards, and then also made it more difficult to get in-person visits. But go ahead, Dave.
This is just interesting. You were talking about JPay just a minute ago. Guess who their parent company is?
I knew it. Platinum Equity, wasn't it?
Yep. Securus Technologies is the parent company of JPay, whose parent company is Platinum. Wow, that's crazy.
I had a feeling that they're not gonna just it's JPay and Securus. I had a feeling we're all the same.
And it's just nuts because here is the 1% own Platinum Technologies, and it's just another form of rich people rich, poor people poor. It's just crazy,
right? And so a lot of times people will ask sometimes people get this suspicion that someone's making money off of prisons, and they'll think it's the state. But honestly, the state isn't really making money off of prisons. Securus is,
to some degree, I guess the state is making money. Somebody is making money, but it's in the grand scheme of things, it's companies like Securus that are killing it.
Right. They're the ones, because they knew exactly what they were doing. Just like how in 2020, all of a sudden their holdings jumped, and it was amazing. They timed that legislation perfectly to make getting physical mail more difficult, right in time with the pandemic. So now the mail room is being even more strict than they normally are, which they were already, as Malone loves to say, book burners. What happened after that legislation went in was that basically everyone stopped getting actual physical mail. Everyone started getting JPay. So basically all your phone calls and all of your letters were JPay, were JPay and Securus. So they basically,
think about it, though,
yeah.
But from an operational standpoint of, say, I'm a director of prisons, right? Mm-hmm. And somebody comes to me and they say, hey, look, I've got this service. It's going to free up a bunch of your time. It's going to save you labor. And I'm like, well, how? How's it going to save me labor? And I was like, how many people do you have reading mail every day? And you'd be like, I don't know, 10. And they're like, well, what if I can drop that down to 1? And I'd be like, well, tell me more. So now I'm intrigued, right? So now I'm saving labor. And because, with JPay and the email system, they could have, just a program set up to flag keywords to where, oh, well, this one's flags. Well, let's read this, whatever, so I can understand how they can make it look attractive to the prison system. And it's just, and if you have the money, because, to back it to where I'm sure, Platinum Equity firm has a ton of money to throw at, Securus to get things going. They can look at the long game and not the short game.
My big thing, especially when this rule got handed down, was that it wasn't just a matter of that I can totally see what you're saying, first of all, how they package it. Oh, yeah. Right. But of all the problems, you just, so basically what happened is that the mail and the mail and physical visits got restricted through that legislation in 2020. So they If my grandma wanted to visit after that March of 2020, dogs were going to going to run through the lines and search my 90-year-old grandma, who it was already difficult for her to come and visit me. All right. And then on top of that, all these people who were sending me these cool colored cards and pictures and things like that, those were all out the window. And what was all that gets eliminated. The reasoning is that people were sending drugs in the mail disguised as the cards, or people were coming in through visit and bringing in whatever. And in reality, you've already said how things get snuck into the prison. It's not generally through the mail, though it does happen. It's not generally through visit, though it does happen. Generally, if an inmate really wants something to get into prison and it's really valuable and they want a lot of it, then they're going to go to the officers. And
well, I mean, you've seen it. I mean, we were locked down for the pandemic. There was no visits. There was hardly any mail, right? And yet people are still, I mean, look how, that fake weed stuff, what they called it K2. I mean, how much of this stuff was rampant on the unit?
During the lockdown, when we were locked down I think we were in the same dorm at this time. Remember those guys? We had 6 guys in the shower at once smoking that stuff during COVID, when we're locked down on the trustee camp. So they had, I don't know if they'd gotten it from the building to the camp, or if they just gotten it someplace else. Doesn't really matter. They got it, smoked it in the shower, and then had to go to medium custody, from the trustee camp during a lockdown. So if they really want it, it wasn't from the mail and it wasn't from visits. They got it. They are able to get it. So that doesn't eliminate. And the real thing that bothers me about these rules more than anything else is that if you want to actually reduce recidivism, if you actually want to reduce that, studies will tell you that contact with the outside world and preparing for what's going to happen as you're getting out, those are things that help reduce recidivism because it keeps you in contact with the community. So you basically took the thing that's going to help prevent recidivism, you cut that off, even though it's a minimal cause of this security threat, and you cut that off at the knees to do what? To make yourself feel more secure. But really, all it really did was make Securus more money. At the end of the day, I feel like that's the only thing it really did.
Oh, that's interesting.
What's that?
You're absolutely correct. Oh, well, so I'm just reading. So California Public Utilities Commission capped the calling rates at detention facilities in the state at 7 cents a minute, 0.07 cents a minute in 2021.
Wow, so they even capped it even lower than what it was at, which is
Secure, yeah, which is kind of interesting because they're owned by what's this guy's name? They're owned by Tom Gores. He owns Platinum Equity, which is he's out of California. Yeah. It's kind of interesting, but you would think he would have kind of fought on that. But they say that prices for calls vary from anywhere from $5 to 4 cents for the first minute to all over to anywhere up to $1.04 per minute thereafter. And wow, and then prices of out-of-state calls were capped. That's why out-of-state calls were capped by the FCC to around 21 cents per minute. That's why they charge less for out-of-state than they do in-state.
Oh,
the FCC said nope.
That's why they could charge more. That makes sense.
In 2015, Securus aggressively lobbied to strike down Federal Communications Commission's intervention regarding pricing regulation for inmate corrections.
Fair. All right. So I'm going to read. So this is from the Texas Tribune article about prison phone calls. And here's, what's
wow.
that? No, go for it.
Okay. This is crazy. says a lot too here. On May 10th, 2018, the New York Times revealed that one of Securus's products can be used to track the location of almost any phone in the U.S. within seconds. Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon has sent letters to the Federal Communications Commission and telecommunications companies demanding answers on the controversial surveillance system. In June 2022, a U.S. Marshal was indicted by the Department of Justice for abusing the product to track people he knew, uploading blank documents and pretending he had authority to track people he had personal relationships with and their spouses.
Nice.
Securus responded to the indictment that they had discontinued the tool more than 4 years ago and permanently shut it off. Huh. So that's, you're a drug dealer. Your family's drug dealers. I'm calling you. And Securus is tracking down my people. Doesn't surprise me.
No, that doesn't. I mean, and they say that all the time. That's another thing about phone calls. If you ever get a call from a prison, it will always say this is being recorded. Everything is being recorded. Yep. It's being, and it sucks because you can't even have really an intimate conversation with your family. Like if something's going on at the prison, like I remember I was having issues with a warden at one point, and I'm like, I don't know if I can actually say much about what's going on because it's the warden. Like,
I know. So and we have we now have our voice prints permanently archived.
Yeah, exactly.
At the Securus facility in Texas.
It's awesome. So let's wrap on this too, because this is from that article about Texas prison phones. And this is from Ana Yanez Correa, Executive Director of Texas Criminal Justice Coalition. And it says, if TDCJ adopts policies that maximize communication with the outside world, she says, the state can make money on the phone system, reduce crime, and save funds it would otherwise spend on reincarcerating people. Having good, positive, close relationships with people on the outside is really important key to reentry. Which, yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
Right. Which is probably why they should have free phone calls and also more phones in general.
And generally, not a family day where your people could come in and you could have a actual real visit.
Yeah. They've done it, the churches have done things like family day, they've done Father's Day where they have pizza and you can hang out with your kids. And so, but it's super rare when things like that happen. It's maybe once a year at certain units. But and
it can be also disrupted by the unit being on lockdown or for whatever, any myriad reasons. But the warden could nix that at any time.
Yeah, exactly. It could go at any time. So once again, phones, visitation, contact with the outside world, far more is one of the most important things as far as recidivism goes. But right now, or not really right now, for TDCJ in general, it's always security is not convenient. And security always trumps everything else. And then we end up with this crazy system where companies come in and are profiting off of that attitude as how can we make money off of you being scared and us being able to handle that for you. And
unfortunately, people don't realize they don't feel like they have a choice,
right?
With it, so they just do it because it's insane.
It is. All right. Well, we're going to call this one a wrap. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And then
The Shakedown was produced in luxurious Longmont, Colorado. Envato Elements provided our theme song, Shakedown. If you want to support us, you can find Shakedown shirts, hoodies, and more at waywordpress.com. That's WAYWORD press.com. If you have ideas for future episodes or cool stuff you want to see us make, let us know in the comments on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Get the Shakedown.